Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Namibia has decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 3.75%. The MPC is of the view that the rate remains appropriate to continue supporting domestic economic activity. Now, Likukela, an economist, now joins me in studio with more on this. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Chisha.
Firstly, Mali, the Monetary Policy Committee has, of course, decided to keep the repo rate at 3.75%. Firstly, what is your take on that here?
I think it's a very good move, considering the circumstances that we found ourselves as a country, as an economy. As we know, the repo rate is the cost of borrowed money. Yes. And in times like this, not so many of us have cash lying around. So if we need money, we have to go and borrow. And if the cost of borrowing is so high, very few people will be able to do that. And if we have few people borrowing, then that's less economic activities, and means that economic activities the economy is not growing. So an announcement like this basically tells you that the cost of borrowing, that is your repo rate, remains where it is, and it remains affordable to the masses.
To the masses.
Yeah.
Has it paid off in your view so far?
Actually, the process, what is called the monetary policy, the monetary transmission mechanism, it's a bit longer. It's a lengthy one. But so far, we have seen that it has managed to contain some more adverse impact of COVID. Yep. And what the repo rate has done so far in the previous months when they started cutting it is to actually make sure that things are not that bad. But we know that from experience, the monetary transmission mechanism takes in a region of 6 to 7 quarters, which we are still not yet since the time they started cutting. Yeah. But we have seen that not so many people have been adversely impacted had it not been for the repo rate. So in a way, my assessment would be that I think given the situation, the circumstances, being the only readily available policy instrument for government and the Bank of Namibia, yes, for that matter, I think it has done fairly well.
Very much indeed. At the onset of this year and towards the end of last year as well, there was this positive outlook in terms of economic growth projections across the globe and for Namibia as well. Initially, the IMF had projected that the global economy will grow by about 6% in 2021 and 2.2% in 2022. Looking at the current situation right now, what do you make of those projections, and what do you make of the initial projections for Namibia's economic growth as well?
First of all, when those projections were made, we had very little information about COVID itself, yes, and its impact thereof. So the projections were made just as we were learning the impact, or the whole issue of COVID and what possible impacts would be. Yes. So those projections, when they were made, very few of those factors were factored in. But upon learning that this COVID was not a joke, it meant business, yes, the revisions, those projections have to be revised. And you have to understand that even before COVID, the global economy, and Namibia for that matter, were limping. So when COVID came, it just pushed the dead person already in the coffin. Yeah. But what I must say is that the quick response of governments all over the world, including Namibia, made it a little bit better to respond to it. And therefore, these revisions, for me, in my opinion, they are well within the reasonable bound of decision-making. Yep. But what we must understand is that, again, like I've said, there was very little information to work with, but the projection still remains relevant. Because if you look in terms of Namibia's projection, we were projecting 7.8%, but it turned out to be 8%, which is within the same margin. Yeah. But that's just to tell you that had we had more information about COVID and its possible impact, would have made better projection. But then again, it still remains a best indicator of so far, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Looking at the current situation at hand, the worsening COVID-19 situation, the slow turnover in terms of vaccination, what do you make of that and its bearing on the Namibian economy?
It will present a drag on the economy, because the more people are not able to work, the more people are not able to interact, the less economic activities, and the less economic activities, the less money being created. And so it goes really to say that people should adhere to the COVID regulation and where possible, take the vaccine as fast as possible, because this will ensure that people are back to work, people are able to make business and the economy to grow. What is really concerning at this point in time is what we are seeing in terms of the inflation that is going up. Many people would think that that's demand that is growing. It is actually not. These are some of the indicators of stock and supply shocks that are coming in slowly into the economy. Because we cannot say it's demand since no jobs have been created. People are still not having jobs and incomes are being lost. So the only explanation to this would be more really in terms of supply shocks. And all these things could be reversed or it can be lessened if people adhere to COVID regulations so that people can begin to go back to work.
In the meantime, how can we brace ourselves as consumers?
It is going to be a rough road ahead because, again, like I've said, this is really not a demand factor per se. If it was a demand factor, it would be easy because all you just need is just to kickstart and improve your income. But this is a supply, a shock issue. So it's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take a bit deeper. And so consumers should really navigate, find a way to navigate. And this is either by trying to live within your means or try to cut out on some consumption, especially those that you can cut out, which are not necessities.
And commodity prices aren't helping either in that regard.
Commodity prices are also not helping either because you see the filtration of the impact of those commodity prices. We have seen that most of the indicators have now gone up. So if we talk of fuel, petroleum indicators going up, it means that it would be translated into higher petrol price in Namibia. In addition, that will put more pressures on the inflation that we already currently experiencing. And if you look at the inflation analysis, the NSA have said that this is coming from the food and non-alcoholic beverage and transport. So this is already beginning to filter through our pockets. And with no prospect of good incomes coming ahead, this is really going to be a bit tough for most people.
Very much so. Mali, from where we stand right now, what would you say would be a realistic projection for Namibia's economic growth, and perhaps also what do you see as possible opportunities to explore given these difficult times here?
Yeah, as you know, our economy has really been dependent on the appetite of the outside world, and we can ride on that wave if we put our economy, our house in order, even within the circumstances that we find ourselves. If we look at the sectors that have been resilient, that have shown resilience over the past year or so, such as communications, IT, medical sector. These are some of the sectors that we can build upon, although it is really not, it's a long shot, but we can build upon this. And we are also, in my view, the rollout of the COVID vaccine should be something that we should welcome because it gives in an impression to even investors that have backed down a bit on the investment that something is happening in Namibia. So if we put all those together and wish that things don't change or get worse, I think Namibia has got better prospect of growth just alongside all other economies of the world. But what is important is to watch the global development because that is where most of our exports are destined to. And again, like I've said, we can do as much inside Namibia domestically, but ultimately it is the appetite of the external world that is going to really make the economy to improve. But my projection would be that I've seen that the Bank of Namibia and some other authorities are projecting in the region of 2.3%, 2.7%. It's a fair projection, but in my view, I think that will come in a year or two's time because the damage to the economy has been quite severe and a lot of people's pockets have been damaged beyond repair. So it's going to take a bit of time for those pockets to start closing up and for money to start coming in. So I'm projecting that kind of growth to happen only in a year or two's time going forward.
Mali Likukela, always a pleasure having you on the program. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
There you have it, economist Mali Likukela reflecting on the recent repo rate announcement by the central bank, keeping it at 3.75%. This is, of course, to boost domestic economic activity, as well as to, of course, maintain the pegging to the South African rand. Of course, Mali did indicate there that it's time for us to explore and see what avenues we can look into under these trying times. And of course, the projection for Namibia's economic growth does not look good at this particular point in time. To stay with us.